Basing. Little glue, little sand, but it looks boring. So maybe you'd like to create something more than that, but you don't know where to start, and you get overwhelmed and you stick to the texture paste and dry brush. Not today, because today I'm gonna hand you some tips that's gonna make basing fun, easy, and not overwhelming. I honestly think that basing can actually save a project, and with me having a big commission coming, and also my Golden Demon project to finish for Adepticon, I really had no more energy for painting. So it's up to you, basing. Starting with the simplest base possible. How can I elevate a simple base and make it look more interesting and realistic? Well, just by following my first tip, for which you're gonna need just the usual basing stuff, sand, texture paste, blah blah blah, but also a secret ingredient. This secret ingredient will allow your mini to feel like it's standing on actual dirt and not just on a plastic disc. I'm talking about air-dried clay. Of course, here you can use either milliput or green stuff, but I wouldn't suggest that because they're slightly more expensive than air-dried clay. Just slap it on, work it in a little bit, and smooth it out. And once it's dried, you will be able to apply your basing stuff. But why doing this? Well, because it's gonna create much needed elevation. Of course, it's well known that Earth is flat, but giving it a bit of elevation will make it more realistic, more dynamic, more than just, like I said, a plastic disc. In this way, even simple bases can look cool and realistic with very little effort. At this point, you could just glue your sand or use your texture paste on this and you would be okay. But wait, don't do that yet. We can make him even better with few more minutes of work. Here you have some sticks and bits and totally random stuff I'm sure you have laying around. Before the clay dries, you're gonna stuck that in your bits and sticks so it feels like they're naturally coming out of the ground. But wait! If you do this without following my second tip, your base is gonna look super fake and artificial. In order to place both organic and inorganic stuff on your base, you need to follow the nature's rule of randomness and variety. You don't want your bits or sticks to be parallel to each other or accurately spaced between each other. That's not it, because nature is random. If you don't believe me, just take a look at what Sergio Calvo does. Here I try to put my elements randomly, smashing them into the still wet clay and smoothing it out. I then complement them by adding a variety of sand and texture paste. You don't really need 100 types of sand like I have. You can just use texture paste, maybe some sand, and coconut fiber. Also, if it's a time that you don't enjoy painting as much, or you want to take a break but you still want to do hobby stuff, this is a good way to do it. Time to reveal our first two bases primed and ready to be painted, which I'm gonna do later. Be patient, please, come on. Let's move on to something more spicy, shall we? I'm gonna get to work on the other two bases, and they're gonna both be artificial bases. I'm gonna start with the wood plank base for Age of Sigmar, measuring and cutting some balsa sticks for the pavement. In my humble opinion, a big part of why we get stuck when we try to do something new with our bases, that we get overwhelmed with the infinite options, combinations, and materials that we have at our disposal. Stop that! That's why my third rule is to pick simple materials. Materials that are easy to find and being at your disposal. Materials that are easy to cut and handle, and you won't be afraid to mess them up because they're just so cheap and simple, you know? And that gets the load off, I think. Hopefully you can relate to what I'm saying. In this case, my simple materials are just cardstock, taken from cards that I found in various Warhammer boxes, or like in this case, packages from some brushes, and also balsa sticks and icicle or coffee stir sticks, whatever you have at hand. Both the balsa and lollipops and coffee stir sticks are both materials very easy to cut, and even for my 40k base, I picked cardstock and some card, which are really easy to cut and measure and stuff like that, and glue together, and then you can just seal it with some Mod Podge, some gesso, some whatever. You could even use some modeling clay. Here I pretty much had 2 layers of cardstock, And then I added one more by adding a corner and the first layer of cardstock. And then I attached the final piece, which was, I don't know, really cool. I liked it. But there's again an extra step you can take to bring this to the next level. This will add again extra realism and also it'll make it more your own and one of a kind. And you'll be amazed how much this step can actually make everything look so much better. I'm talking about adding small details with things you already have at your disposal or that you already use on your base. For the Age of Sigmar wood plank base, I am not gonna add anything at all. Detail is imparted by scoring the balsa wood and so creating the impression of wood grain actually to scale with the miniatures. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for me. For the 40k base, things went a little bit differently. I wanted to use this nail thingy to represent nails in my base. That was a little bit frustrating because those things were so small and they would not stick to the base for the lava god. I just abandoned the idea. Then I realized that one of those thingies actually stuck on the base. So I thought, okay, I can work this out. I couldn't. So after adding that extra layer of cardstock like I showed in the previous step, I applied some Mod Podge pretty much all over, thinking that that will help me with the sticky. It didn't. So I retried and yeah, it was hideous. Please don't do that. Now they're there, but they're not worth it. I'm telling you this in advance, don't do that. So I decided instead to add a little tube using just a wooden skewer. Nice. Let's move on before I set fire to everything. Time for the big reveal of the primed and ready to paint bases. Now that you have an overview on the basics, it's time to move out from the comfort zone and try something more advanced. Something very simple but still effective. Of course, here I'm using all the 4 principles we talked about before. So here I gather some materials for my woodland base and I'm trying to make them fit together. Having a lot of junk, even natural junk, helps out a lot in this phase. Then I started off with my iodide clay, smoosh it out and smooth it out, and then I glued my stick and my cork piece to my base with the help of the iodide clay. And once it's dried, I just smooth it all out so I can incorporate the earth with the stick and the rock that I have on my base, and it's gonna be way more organic. Like I said, this base is really easy, but it's really effective. And basically the last step is to apply some sand, different types of sand. I applied some static grass to create a feeling of woods and stuff like that. Coconut fiber, and also at the end of the process I also added some moss, which I really love the texture of. And it's a really good product, especially when you paint it good texture. And that's it, pretty much. Once again, I am blessed by this junk box that I can choose stuff from, and I picked this tube for my mother's tank that I stole, and this other tube that's from dog poop bags. And I started cutting some foam board because I wanted to build the platforms with foam board, but I didn't realize that foam board would not work for that because it's way too soft. But yeah, you learn that the hard way. So I cut some cardstock, dry fitted the mini in order to figure out if the feet were standing where I think they were standing. And I started gluing things together. Started with the big tube, then the other smaller one. And I swear I had some diamond-shaped plastic card. I can't find it for the lava god. So I used this net from, I think, onions or garlic to create that kind of a pattern. And here, of course, it's the part where I have to be aware of the foam board, not a good material. So I use XPS instead, that should work better, and I cut 2 layers. And yeah, still very soft material, hey? Don't get me wrong, but it works. Definitely works better. I seal it with some Mod Podge, and I also put some air-dried clay around the base just to make it a little bit more sturdy. And that's it. Pretty easy. If I can do it, you can do it. Come on. And here's the final reveal of the Pro bases. And here we are to the end of our basing journey. But wait, there's more. There's still one final little step that it can make or break all your efforts in the previous steps. Of course, I'm talking about painting the damn thing. Painting bases is much more freeing than painting minis. It requires way less precision and attention, and you don't need to have smoothness. Takes a big load off. Stop limiting yourself with the boring wash and dry brush. There is so much more. So while I paint all my 6 bases, I'm gonna share with you 3 tips that can make painting bases both more effective and fun. Have fun with colors. Use a wide variety of colors to paint earth and natural elements. Yellows, grays, browns, greens. Playing around randomness of nature, using more tones for each color. And then you can use a wash and pigments to bring everything together and make it look cohesive. In this case, I used oil washes because I could then directly fix the pigments to the base with mineral spirits. But feel free to use contrast paints or some other kind of filter. Experiment with your blends. This is the place where you can actually experiment with your blends without fear. Apply a slightly thicker paint and wet blend it and work different tones together and see what happens. It's gonna be fun and it's gonna be pressure free. Also, I want to give you an extra tip for painting flat surfaces. Instead of using the boring dry brush, I'm instead gonna apply a semi-thick layer in the left back part of the surface. This is because most of the times I'm trying to imagine the spotlight is hitting the mini slightly from the front. After applying the color, I'm just gonna blend by stippling while the color is still wet. Like I said, here you can experiment. Here your blends don't have to be perfect. You can basically just have fun. Boom! Easy. This is about adding the final touch to your base. For example, on the woodland base, I added tufts, and on the artificial bases, I added like hazard stripes, I painted tubes in different colors, I used decals and stuff like that. All pretty easy stuff that can enhance your paint job. But time for the big reveal. So now you know pretty much all the basics of basing, but you still have to paint it then mini, and you need it done fast and easy. So you use the fastest technique, slap chop. I discovered a way to slap chop that not only looks better, but it's also faster because it skips some steps. So watch this to see how I fixed slap chop.